Hello ladies and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and in today's video we're going to be going over the top 10 most underrated sports cars for less than $10,000. But before we go into that, I wanted to say, if you haven't already, go watch Game of Thrones. Why, you may ask? Well, I watched it like 2 years ago and I loved it, every episode of it, and I probably made it when I watched it back then. I probably made a video and was saying like you should go watch it, but I'm watching it again with my family, and it's just, I just forgot how great it was. If you like Skyrim and like the old medieval stuff like that, ooh, you'll like it, dude. Ooh, you'll like it. I mean, ooh. But today, Game of Thrones aside, I mean, they didn't have any of these sports cars for less than $10,000 back in their time. That's the only downside to this show, is that they actually didn't have any of these cars, but that's what we're going to be going over today. So without further ado, let's go right into it with number 10. And number 10 is, of course, a JDM boy, the Nissan 300ZX Z31. The Z32 is obviously very popular. Everybody likes it right now. Also, I just want my hat. I'm wearing a hat right now, and I can see myself on my new GoPro in like the camera, and I literally look like Donald Duck. It's like so long, it's hilarious. But anyway, the Z32 is super popular. Z31, in my opinion, is underrated. Comes with the same motor though, a 3-liter V6 making 222 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. Obviously, in terms of its actual performance compared to the Z32, it doesn't meet up with the Z32 standards. It's also really hard to work on, but so is the Z32, so take that into consideration. It definitely, I would also say, doesn't look as good as the Z32 either. So there is reasons why people talk about the Z32 over the Z31, but it's still a sports car, man, and it's still pretty cool. And I feel like people just absolutely sleep on these cars. They're probably the most slept on Nissan Z car of all time. Like, no one talks about them, because when they bring up 300ZX, they just talk about the Z32, and that is not how this world should be. It's not fair. Ninth place is going to the wonderful Mitsubishi Eclipse GT 4G, the 4th generation Mitsubishi Eclipse GT. Everything after the 2G Eclipse got hated on. The 3G, the 4G, they got hated on. They got ragged on pretty hard by the car community, and I don't think either of them deserve it. So the 3G also deserves to be on this list, but we're going to talk about the 4G. The 4G Eclipse comes with a 3.8-liter V6, making 265 horsepower in its front-wheel drive, and that's pretty much the reason why I put it on this list. I get why people don't like the 4th gen and the 3rd gen Eclipse GTs. The 2nd gen and the 1st gen were tuner legends. They had great little inline fours that could handle a ton of power. They were boosted from factory. Like, that's awesome. And then they gave us V6s with front-wheel drive only, whereas the first two also were offered as all-wheel drive. And that's definitely, obviously, a questionable decision on their part. But it's, if you are just looking for a car that looks decent and is fast out of the gate and unfortunately can't really make that much power, then this is a car for you. It already has 265 horsepower. Sure, you're not going to get anything crazy out of it because it is pretty bad in terms of its tuning potential, but you don't really need that if you have 265 right out of the gate. 8th place is going to specifically the Audi TT 2nd generation, but I honestly believe that every Audi TT is pretty underrated. There is a lot of downsides to Audi TTs, and again, it does make sense why some people just say, you know, hey, these are not cars that I'm going to look at for less than $10,000. But there are so many things that I like about them too. They come with the 2nd gen comes with a 3.2-liter V6, making 250 horsepower in its front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Most of them are going to be front-wheel drive, unfortunately, though. And on top of that, that's kind of the reason why most people don't really talk about the Audi TTs. It's like, why purchase an Audi TT when you could just get pretty much the exact same thing in the A4s or the S4s, or even better, honestly, and you have 4 seats. Like, it doesn't really make much sense for most people. On top of that, the front wheel drive part of it is definitely not, like, when you buy an Audi, you get all wheel drive. Like, that's what you're looking for, right? And so getting a front wheel drive Audi just kind of doesn't make much sense. But either way, the Audi TT is a sports car. It does look good, and it does handle really well. They're not that heavy at all. They have a short wheelbase, and they're still an Audi that's like elegant and has a nice interior too. 7th place, however, is going to a car that's not only underrated, but I think it's like overhated. Like, I think people hate this car too much. It's the Ford Probe GT. I remember growing up, everybody would make fun of the Ford Probe. It was a car that, like, it was just ragged on. Like, I didn't know what it looked like, so I always thought it was like a PT Cruiser type of car, but boy was I wrong. The car comes with a 2.2-liter turbocharged inline-4, making 145 horsepower in its front wheel drive. They also do come with a V6, for anybody wondering, but I'm gonna go with the turbo model for this one. But here's the thing, are they good for making power? No, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you about that. Are they race cars? No, they're pretty heavy, long wheelbase, front wheel drive only. It's definitely not like the sportiest car out there, but they look pretty good. And again, I understand that looks aren't something that can like carry a car to the top, but let's be real here, there are a lot of cars out there that the only reason why people like them so much is because they look good. Okay, that's it. Sixth place is going to one that I just have a guilty pleasure for, the Honda Prelude 4th generation. The Honda Prelude line in general doesn't get talked about enough in my opinion. And again, just like the rest of these cars on this list, people do have reasons why they don't talk about these cars, but in my opinion, they're not good enough reasons. Especially with these Preludes for sure, because the reason is stupid. The car comes with a 2.2 liter inline 4, making 190 horsepower in its front wheel drive. Keep in mind this was in the 90s. Hondas in the 90s were not making 190 horsepower. Not even Type R's were making 190 horsepower, okay? And these cars were making 190. That's pretty freaking good. Now, the reason why people don't talk about them is unfortunately the motors are just not as good as things like a B series or a K series. People would just rather have those motors. But let's be real. When was the last time you heard a person with a Honda that has the stock Honda motor in it? Like, why do people bring that up? They're like, oh, it has an F series, man. F series isn't good. Yeah. Your EG Civic has a K series in it, okay? That didn't come with a K series. Why do you like the EG Civic so much? It doesn't even have the same motor. It's so confusing. Fifth place is a car. This is pretty much the reason why this list had to be labeled as under 10K, because this one can't be found under 5K, but pretty much everything up until this point has been able to be found under 5K. But it's the Toyota MRS, or the 3rd generation Toyota MR2, but for some reason they were too cool. My name is Toyota. We're going to name it the MRS. Ooh, shut up. It's an MR2 Spider, and it's only available as a Spider. That's the reason why they gave it the S, but still so stupid. Car comes with a 1.8 liter inline 4, making 140 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. I honestly believe the only reason why people don't talk about this car is because they don't like how it looks. Like, I genuinely think that's it. Maybe they might be like, oh, well, because it's a Spider only. You can get a hardtop, bro. Like, it's not that hard to get a hardtop. It really isn't. And it doesn't look that bad either. It looks weird for sure, and I'm not going to say it looks better than the SW20 or the AW11. I don't think so. But it's not a bad looking car. And it handles incredibly well. Better than the MR2 SW20. Shoot me down. Shoot me down. Fourth place, however, is going to the Chevy Corvette C4. I talk about the C4 Vet in a lot of my videos, and people on my channel seem to like them, but I feel like for the rest of the world, they still don't. And again, is it probably the worst generation of Corvette? Yes. I'm not going to argue that. The C3 is better, C2 is better, C1, C6, C5, C8, all better, C7 obviously better as well, but it's still a Corvette, man. It comes with a 5.7 liter V8 making 230 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. However, this is during the gas crisis, so literally every single year had a different horsepower number, so you got to do your research there. But yes, I get that it's not as good as pretty much any of the other Vets. It really isn't. Its horsepower numbers are low, it doesn't look that good, it didn't have the most reliable parts on it. I get that, but it's still a Corvette, and on top of that, it's a very lightweight Corvette. Compared to the rest of the Vet line, these cars were light. They were small little Vets, so they don't really need as much horsepower as the other ones, and it still does have a V8 in it. You still can get more power out of it if you really want to, and it's still a Vet with pop-ups. It's a cool car. Third place is a car. There's a guy in my town who drives one of these around all the time. I freaking love him. He's like 16 years old, but God bless him, smartest kid ever. If this was his first car, good guy. BMW 740i E38, big body Beamer from the 90s. Oh man, count me in. Are they sports cars? Absolutely not. They're luxury cars that your grandfather probably dreamed about owning, but they are so cool. They come with a 4.4 liter V8 making 282 horsepower in its rear wheel drive only. They are big cars. They're heavy. The motors in them are, it's a V8 from Germany, so keep that in mind, you know. I'm pretty sure it's the same V8 that they were putting in the E39 540i so at the time, which is pretty cool. They're just a cool big body Beamer that are dirt cheap nowadays. It's like the Lexus LS400 but from Germany, and I love that about it. As a matter of fact, this is a car that Lexus was trying to compete with when they came out with the LS400. It's just a 7 Series Beamer for like less than 5K. Come on. Second place is definitely a car that gets love. Like, people do talk about this car, and they talk about it quite a bit. The Ford Focus ST. However, I just feel like it doesn't get enough love. It is like okay, so I'm not a hatchback guy. I really am not. I've never been into hatchbacks that much. But one hatchback that I've always thought was like really good compared to the competition was the Mazda Speed 3. I always thought that was just like a really over the top hatchback. And this is another one. The car comes with a 2.3 liter turbo inline 4, making 252 horsepower in its front wheel drive. Let's think about that real quick, okay? This car came out around the same time the Mark 6 GTI was out, right? And the Mark 6 GTI also came with a 2 liter turbo inline 4, but that one only made 210 horsepower. This made 40 horsepower more, and it still had its four doors, still had the hatchback charisma to it, and it was still tunable. Like, you could still get tons of power out of this. It was boosted from factory, so easy power out of just something as simple as a tune. It really just made no sense why people just like don't talk about this, and they talk about things like the GTIs or the Hyundais, like the Velosters and the i30s or whatever, but they don't talk about the Focus, and it kind of makes me upset. honorable mention, baby, because you know it's gonna be here, man. But the reason why it's an honorable mention is because not only is it another BMW, but it does get talked about in certain groups. So BMW 635 CSI E24. The car comes with a 3.5 liter inline six, making 286 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. Tons of horsepower for a car that's pretty freaking old at this point, 40 years old. It's really good for its time. I just freaking love how the E24 looks. There are groups of people out there that love the E24, and I'm one of them, but I feel like the rest of the community just needs to know about these things. Like, I like these better than the E30s, and that's not even a close comparison, honestly. Like, these things are sick. But first place, in my opinion, the most underrated car for less than $10,000 right now, and it's honestly for less than $5,000, the Lexus GS300/GS400. We're going to talk about the GS300 though, because I like that one slightly better. It comes with a 3-liter inline six, making 225 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. That motor is the 2JZ, but yes, it's a naturally aspirated 2JZ, so don't expect like a ton of horsepower out of that. It's yes, automatic only. Yes, it's a heavy car, but it's incredibly reliable. And the same goes for the V8 counterpart, the GS400 with the 4-liter 1UZ. If you get that, it's the same thing. It's reliable as hell, good on gas. Not as good, obviously, as the inline six, but still good on gas, and it's more powerful than the inline six, so you get a little bit of a bigger payoff too. It's just such a cool car, and like in a world where the LS400 is incredibly popular and it's hard to find an IS300 manual for less than 5K nowadays, something like a GS300 it's only time before people start to catch on to these cars and they start to fly up in price, dude. These things are JDM legends waiting to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the top 10 most underrated cars for less than $10,000. I say sports cars, but some of these cars are definitely not sporty, you know, like the GS300 is not a sports car, the 740i is not a sports car, that's about it. Pretty much all the other cars were pretty much labeled as a sports car when they came out. But yeah, some of these aren't definitely sports cars, and they all fit for different people's needs. Like, I personally am not a hatchback guy. I would never buy a Focus ST, but that's why I make my videos, man, because I try to keep everybody in mind, you know? Okay, like, I would never buy a hatchback. It's just not my thing. I mean, technically, I did buy a hatchback. I technically bought 2 hatchbacks, actually, because a 350Z and an Integra are both technically hatchbacks. But you know what I mean when I say hatchbacks. I mean the hatchbacks that go like that, you know, those kinds of hatchbacks. Wagons, but shorter. That's what I'm talking about, partner. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are enjoying. Oh, it's my birthday 2 days ago. When this video goes live, it should be 2 days ago. So, happy birthday, me. I'm 24 years old now, for anybody wondering. 24, still living in his parents' basement. You don't gotta mention it. I just mentioned it for you. You don't gotta make fun of me in the comments. I feel like a bum too, okay? But it's coming, don't worry. I'm trying to buy a house. It's just so stressful, man. So stressful, so much stuff to go through. You guys do not understand. If you are in high school, watching my video right now, and you're like, oh my god, man, high school is so tough. I gotta go do homework. I gotta go wake up tomorrow and try and see Kathy at school and be like, and then my teacher's gonna call me up to the board when I got a little stiffy going on, and then I'm gonna have to try and hide it in my waistband. I don't know what to do. You ain't seen nothing yet, partner, okay? Try buying a house. It's tough. It's not easy. It's really tough, and it's freaking stressful. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I just went on a little rant there. Tas Vitania, and have a nice night.